I'm Daniel Brown, and I'll be performing The Ridiculous Wishes by Charles Perrault Fairy Tales. In days long past, there lived a poor woodcutter who found life very hard. Indeed, it seemed it was his lot to toil with a little garden, and although he was young and happily married, there are times when he wished himself dead and below ground. One day, while at his work, he was again lamenting his fate. "Some men," he said, "have only to make known their desires, and straightway these are granted, and their every wish fulfilled. But it has availed me little to wish for aught, for the gods are deaf to the prayers of such as I." As he spoke these words, there was a great noise of thunder, and Jupiter appeared before him wielding his mighty thunderbolts. Our poor man was stricken with fear and threw himself to the ground. "Have no fear," answered Jupiter. "I have heard thy plaint, and have come hither to show thee how greatly thou dost wrong me. Hark! I, who am sovereign lord of this land, promise to grant in full the first 3 wishes which it shall please thee to utter, whatever these may be. Consider well what things may bring thee joy and prosperity, and as thy happiness is at stake, be not over hasty, but revolve the matter in thy mind." Having thus spoken, Jupiter withdrew himself and made his ascent to Olympus. As for our woodcutter, he blithely corded his faggot, and, tossing it over his shoulder, made for his home. To one so light of heart, the load also seemed light, and his thoughts were merry as he strode along. Upon reaching his cottage, and casting down his load, he said to his wife, "Behold me, Fanny. Strike up the fire and spread the board, and let there be no stint. We are wealthy, Fanny, wealthy for evermore. We have only to wish for whatsoever we may desire." Thereupon he told her the story of what had befallen that day. Fanny, whose mind was quick and active, immediately conceived many plans for the advancement of their fortune, but she approved her husband's resolve to act with prudence and circumspection. "'Twere a pity," she said, to spoil our chances through impatience. We had best take counsel of the night, and wish no wishes until tomorrow." "That is well spoken," answered Harry. "Meanwhile, fetch a bottle of our best, and we shall drink to our good fortune." Fanny fetched the bottle from behind the store, and our man was soon enjoying his ease, with his toes to the fire and his goblet in his hand. "Ah, what a fine toasting fire," he said, "and what fine glowing embers. I wish we had a black pudding at hand." Hardly had he spoken these words, when his wife beheld, to her great astonishment, a long black pudding which, issuing from the hearth, came winding and wriggling towards her. She cried out in fear, and then again exclaimed in dismay, when she beheld that this strange occurrence was due to the wish that her husband had so rashly and foolishly uttered. Turning upon him, in her anger and disappointment, she called him all the abusive names she could think of. "What," she said, "when you call for a kingdom, pearls, diamonds, rubies, princely garments, and wealth untold, is this the time to set your mind upon black puddings?" "Nay," answered the man, "'twas a thoughtless speech and a sad mistake, but I shall now be on my guard, and shall do better next time." "Who knows what you will?" returned his wife, and continuing to upbraid her husband, she gave free rein to her ill will and vexation, until his anger was also stirred, and he had well nigh made a second bid and wished himself a widower. "Enough, woman," he cried at last. "Put a check upon thy forward tongue. Who ever heard such impertinence as this? A plague on the shrew and on her pudding. Would to heaven it hung at the end of her nose." Hardly had he spoken these words, when the wish was straightway granted, and the long coil of black pudding appeared grafted into the angry dame's nose. Our man paused when he beheld what he had wrought. Fanny was a comely young woman, and blessed with good looks, and, truth to tell, this new ornament did not offset her beauty, yet it offered one advantage, that it would thus effectively curb her speech. So, now having but one wish left, our woodcutter had all but resolved to make good use of it straightway, before any other mischance could befall, and wish himself a kingdom. He was about to give voice to the word, when he was stayed by a sudden thought. "Is it true," he said to himself, "that there is none so great as a king? But what of the queen that must share his dignity? With what grace would she sit beside me with a yard of black pudding for her nose?" In this dilemma he resolved to put the case to Fanny, and leave it up to her to decide whether she would rather be a queen, with this most horrible appendage marring her good looks, or remain a peasant wife, but with her shapely nose relieved of this untoward addition. Fanny's mind was soon made up. Although she had dreamt of a crown and scepter, yet a woman's first wish is always to please, and to this all else must yield. And Fanny would rather be fair and drugget than be a queen with an ugly face. Thus our woodcutter did not change his state, did not become a potentate, nor fill his purse with golden crowns. He was thankful enough to use his last wish to a more humble purpose, and forthwith relieved his wife of her encumbrance.